The elevator phantom. You think hospitals are just places for healing, don't you? Well, let me tell you, not all of them are. Some are holding on to secrets, memories, and things you'd never believe. There's one story I'll never forget. It's about an old hospital, one with a certain elevator that no one wanted to take. It was an ordinary hospital, nothing particularly special. But if you worked the night shift, you'd quickly learn there was nothing ordinary about it. The elevator, that's where it all started. It would stop on the 4th floor, over and over again without anyone pressing the button. It doesn't sound that strange at first, right? Maybe a mechanical glitch. But here's the thing. The 4th floor was abandoned, completely sealed off. No one was allowed up there, not since the fire. The staff never talked about what really happened. They'd just glance at you with these uneasy expressions if you brought it up. But from what I heard, it had been a pediatric floor, filled with kids battling illnesses. One night, there was a fire, small but devastating. Several children and one nurse never made it out. And now, it seems they never left. It was 3 a.m. when Sarah, a new nurse, got her first taste of it. She was charting patient vitals when the elevator chimed. Ding. The doors slid open. Strange, because no one had called it. She peeked inside. Empty. Shrugging it off, she stepped back to her desk. But then, just as she sat down, she heard it again. Ding. This time, she noticed the elevator had stopped at the 4th floor. She stared at the screen, heart thudding. No one should be up there. It was locked, right? Curiosity got the better of her. Grabbing her flashlight, she stepped inside the elevator. The ride was smooth at first, but the closer she got to the 4th floor, the colder it felt. By the time the doors opened, her breath was visible in the icy air. The hallway stretched out before her, dimly lit, silent except for the faintest sound of something. Sobbing. A child's cry. It echoed faintly, pulling her forward despite every instinct screaming at her to stay back. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. No answer, just the crying, louder now. It seemed to come from one of the rooms. The door was slightly ajar and a flickering light spilled into the hallway. When she pushed the door open, she saw a child, no older than 6, sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. Her hospital gown was tattered, her skin pale, her hair matted. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, crouching down. The girl didn't answer. Slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes, empty black voids, met Sarah's, and a chilling smile spread across her face. The door slammed shut behind them, and the girl whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Sarah doesn't remember much after that. She was found hours later, unconscious in the elevator. She quit the next day, refusing to talk about what happened. But she wasn't the last. Other staff reported hearing whispers near the elevator or seeing shadowy figures through the doors. Sometimes the elevator would show up at random floors, but it was always empty, at least physically. And if you ever ride that elevator, don't let it take you to the 4th floor. You might not make it back. The dead patient call. It happened in 2003 at a mid-sized hospital in a small town. The kind of place where everyone knew each other, where the nurses and doctors were like family. Night shifts there were usually uneventful. Quiet halls, the steady beeping of heart monitors, and the occasional rustle of a patient stirring in their bed. But this night was different. It was around midnight when the phone rang at the nurses' station. Jane, a veteran nurse with over 20 years of experience, answered it. She was used to odd hours and even odder calls. "Nurse's station, this is Jane," she said, her voice steady. At first, there was silence on the other end. Faintly, she heard a voice, a man's voice, weak, almost a whisper. "Help me." Jane frowned and glanced at the monitor showing the rooms. "Sir, where are you calling from?" The voice was barely audible. "Room 418, please, help me." Her heart skipped a beat. Room 418 had been empty since earlier that evening. The patient, an older man named Mr. Bernard, had passed away just hours before. She knew this because she had been the one to check his pulse and pronounce him dead. "Is this a joke?" Jane asked, her voice sharper now. She hung up, uneasy, and tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a crossed line or someone messing around. But when she looked down at the call log, her blood ran cold. The call had come from room 418. Jane decided to check it out, if only to put her mind at ease. She grabbed a flashlight and headed down the hallway. The hospital felt unnaturally cold, and the fluorescent lights flickered overhead. When she reached room 418, the door was closed. She hesitated, hand hovering over the handle. For a moment, she thought she heard something, a faint tapping, like fingernails against glass. She opened the door slowly. The room was empty, just as it should have been. The bed was neatly made, the machines turned off, and Mr. Bernard's body had been removed hours ago. But something felt wrong. The air in the room was heavy, almost suffocating. The tapping sound was louder now, coming from the window. She turned toward it, her heart pounding. The window overlooked the hospital parking lot, but there was no one outside. Yet, as she watched, the condensation on the glass began to shift. Slowly, deliberately, letters began to form. HELPME. Jane stumbled back, her flashlight dropping to the floor. The letters stayed for only a moment before fading away. The next day, Jane couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She decided to check Mr. Bernard's chart, hoping for some kind of explanation. As she read through it, something jumped out at her, his final request. Before he passed, Mr. Bernard had begged the staff to call his daughter. He hadn't seen her in years, and he wanted to make amends. But the phone lines had been down that evening, and the staff had been too busy to follow through. Jane felt a chill run down her spine. Could that have been why he called? Was he trying to reach out one last time? The mystery doctor. Patients often spoke of a kind, older doctor who visited them late at night. They described his features in detail, but no one fitting that description worked at the hospital. When shown an old staff photo, patients identified a doctor who had passed away decades earlier.